Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We'd greatly appreciate it. We have Ashley Leeds on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Canada. She is going to be close to our 10th Canadian guest. I'm not sure as to how many we've had, but we're getting a lot of our neighbors to the north to come onto the podcast. She's 21 years old, believe it or not. I also appreciate, having someone who's a little bit younger than me on the podcast. She's a CPA women's natural figure and overall figure champ. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what really caused you to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Okay, so it's kind of a long story and a little weird and maybe a little off-putting to some people listening, but I find from personal experience in my own opinion, I find that, young females who start off in the fitness industry, it usually starts from some form of like unhealthy habits, like body dysmorphia or, an eating disorder or something. Unfortunately, that's kind of where it all started. So when I was in my early years of high school, I felt like the only control I had in my life was, my body and being able to control how light I was or how heavy I was. And so I'd be running 10K every single day. And, I'd go to my sports classes. And if I felt like I didn't do enough cardio, I'd have to go out and run more because I needed some form of like structure and control in my life. And that's where I found it. And so after a while, I finally realized, like this unhealthy lifestyle is not sustainable. I can't be so limited and constricting on myself and how my body looks. And so I started getting into lifting weights. I'd go to Good Life just down the street from my house. And, I was introduced to some of these bodybuilders, competitors as well. And they encouraged me. They're like, hey, come work out with us. And so when you work out with someone who's really big and buff, it motivates you to, you have to push yourself and lift heavy like them too. And thankfully with my genetics, it's easy for me to kind of lift heavier and push myself a bit more. And so I found it motivating being around all these people. And, it was so cool seeing someone so strong being able to lift all this weight and how powerful they felt. And, I felt like that could be my own source of control and structure in my life, is feeling that power and feeling, like I can lift 80-pound dump shoulder press. I can bench 2 plates, squat 3 plates. Like it was cool. And, it just started going from there. I went from CrossFit to powerlifting and now to bodybuilding. And like, I just feel I needed that form of structure. And that's how I got into it. I liked how it looked. I liked how I felt. And I liked having some form of control in my life where I had control over every attribute of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got into it.
100%. And again, for everyone out there, she's Canadian, so 10K kilometers, not miles. We have a different little metric system. I always like to point that out. But
yeah, sorry.
Oh, no worries. No. Oh yeah, and then she apologizes too, so we know that she's Canadian. So no, I'm from Minnesota, and we're very similar to Canadians up here. A lot of times it's called like the 13th province, where just because we have the same manners and we have the same. Well, sometimes if you get up north, like in Duluth and places like that, the Canadian accent is kind of up there. So yeah, no worries at all. Well, that's the Minnesotan way of saying sorry. We say no worries all the time. It'll always be no worries, no worries, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I always love to point out is if you were to walk into a gym with 100 different people, there are 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape. Whether it comes down to, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. Was that hard for you figuring out at first what really worked best specifically for your body? Because I always like to say, if you were to go up to someone and say like, hey, what you did with this body part is amazing. Like, I want to start doing that. What works for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. Every body is different, right? Everyone retains water or retains fat a different way. Some exercise, like let's go to the basics. Compare a male to a female. If they do one exercise and you do one exercise, obviously they have the genetic compound that they're able to lift heavier. They're able to lean out faster than you. Their muscles just peak a lot better than yours would because of our genetic makeup, right? So yes, it did, because especially throughout my journey, like I have a lot of people who've influenced my fitness journey. I've had coaches, I've had friends, bodybuilders, powerlifters. Everyone has, like, even with bodybuilding, CrossFit, all different forms of cardio. So everyone has their own opinion on, their training style or their body type. And with me, I found even when I first started competing, like I had a strict meal plan, but, my dad would have some form of opinion like, oh, you should be doing this. And then my coach is like, no, Ash, you should be doing this. Or my powerlifting friend should be like, you're not cutting enough weight. You need to be doing this and pushing harder. So everyone has their own impact an own perspective on, like this is how it's supposed to be because that's how their body responds to it. So it was a bit challenging for me because, I am young. It was the first time competing and, retaining as much knowledge as I could from everyone. So it got a bit confusing of how I should structure my diet and how I should structure how I work out and my nutrition. So it did make it a bit difficult, but I got over it. I know how my body responds to things and the limits that I need to stay within or go
Yeah.
without.
Absolutely, and I always love to ask. I mean, everyone has that one body part that really takes off, that they really don't have to train as much. That just they're genetically blessed with having it be very good. And then everyone always has that one body part that they need to sort of overtrain just to get it to keep up or just to catch up with everything. What are those for you?
So I find the thing that grows the fastest, obviously my upper half, it can lean out kind of like that in a couple weeks, but my back has always been there. My lower back and my upper back, it's usually very defined in tone. It puts on size so easy. Like, I'm not going to say I slack up in the gym, but like I can kind of get away with doing like half reps, not lifting as heavy, and it's still going to maintain its shape. Obviously, the hardest part for females and me is our lower half. Our estrogen levels make it harder because we retain a lot of water in our lower half. And me too, like, unfortunately, it kind of runs in my family where we do retain a lot of water in our ankles and our legs. So it makes it even harder for me to lose fat and, shape them up. There's still a whole bunch of muscle underneath that,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes it hard to lose weight in my lower.
I'm almost exactly the same where my back, I mean, like I say, I could lift back once a month and it would still, it would still look great. And then,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm also 6'3", so my legs too, that's just, that's not, I mean, I have to overtrain them, and I hate it. I hate working out legs and I used to be a pitcher.
Yeah.
I used to be a pitcher too, so you had to have like lean legs. You couldn't have like big, huge legs. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to be as productive. So that really was just a horrible experience training legs for the first couple of times, like actually training them heavy, because it used to just be about doing like band workouts with them just to get them like slender.
Yeah.
That was a really rough adjustment for me. And I'm also one of those people that is not blessed with genetically good calves too, so I could do 10,000. I could do
I think
10,000.
it's a guy thing.
Oh well, yeah, because ladies, I mean, and plus a lot of these girls that we have on the walk in high heels all the time too. I mean, it's like that's just number one gonna get you nice calf. But yeah, I could do 10,000 calf raises every single day, and it wouldn't affect them at once. So I've had so many people where I ask them the same question. They're like, "Oh yeah, my calves." And I had one girl who put her calf up on the table, and I was like, "Okay, we're done here. I'm not talking anymore." I was like, "That's ridiculous." Like her calves were bigger than my arms, and I was like, "Okay, this is BS, everyone." So yeah, I mean, that's one of those things too. Where yeah, especially for guys, there's always that one guy who just walks in the gym and you can just tell his calves are about like 2 feet across, and you're just like, he's never had to do it a day in his life.
Yeah. Some people are just blessed with good.
Yep. They're just blessed with good things. But
Yeah.
now, at what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to compete? How long into that transformation before you finally said like, "Hey, I'd be doing a show." That seemed like something that I might want to do.
Yeah. So my prep started in, I think, July. And so about 2 months before that, I had a lot of people coming up to me and they're like, you should think about competing. Like, your body is really good. You can lift a lot of weights. Like, I naturally have an athletic shape to me. So with hard work and dedication, I could transform myself easy. And so I had been thinking about it for a while, but I was like, it's first of all, the financial aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, it's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of time. Literally, your life revolves around it. Everything does, your meals, your emotions, your mentality. It's a lot that goes into it. And so I finally had so many people being like, you should just do it, give it a shot. If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I'll consider it. I'll reach out to, I had a friend who was a coach and, we kind of talked for a little bit and I was like, you know what, this kind of seems up my alley. And I was kind of getting bored of what I was doing at the gym. I felt like, I have only so much knowledge right now. And I feel kind of restricted that I need to kind of open myself up to learn more if I want to, be fitter and have more knowledge within the fitness industry. I needed to kind of go that next level. And, competing is the next level.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. So,
yeah.
what was your first prep like? Because I always like to make the statement that, I mean, a lot of people when they start to work out and get bigger and stronger, that's a hard enough challenge in and of itself when it comes to getting that nutrition right, getting the workouts right. But then when you go on prep, that is just notching it up to a whole different extreme where it's you got to eat everything right. For a lot of people, you got to eat at the right time. You got to get all of your workouts in. I mean, you can't skip really anything. It always just like you said, it takes over your life. It becomes the most important thing. What was that experience like for you? Was that a difficult adjustment, or was it one of those things where it wasn't as hard as you thought it would be?
So For my friends who I've talked to,
Mhm,
they know at the start of my prep, I absolutely hated it.
mhm,
I was pissed off all the time. I was like, I'm
mhm,
never freaking doing this ever again. Because it was so challenging. Like, I have a very bland palate, so the eating wasn't the hard
mhm,
part. And especially because like I could eat every 2 hours, so that was kind of cool. But it was mentally draining, emotionally draining. Like it was such an adjustment, especially because, I started my prep at 180 pounds of like pure dense muscle
mhm.
and I had to drop down to 135 pounds. Like,
Wow.
that's a huge weight
Yeah.
cut and it's a huge adjustment. So having to go to the gym 2 times a day to do 90 minutes of cardio every single
Mhm,
day. I know. And like for females, because like I mentioned, it's my legs are so hard to shape up and lean
mhm,
down. So I had to do those 90 minutes of cardio at 4:30 in the morning. I had to, run stairs, um, train for 3.5 hours every single day. Like, it's my life revolved around it. I'd have to skip school sometimes just to get in my workout, wake up at 4:30 in the morning so I can get ready and go to
mhm,
school for 8:30. It was very consuming, mentally and physically draining. Every opportunity I had to go take a nap, I'm in
mhm.
bed right away.
See, I
Yeah.
got lucky. I mean, I never competed or anything like that, but my class schedule, I never took a class before noon. That was my thing in college where I said, you know what, if it's before noon, it's not worth it for me. So
Yeah.
I got lucky where then and I am a super late person. Like I'll go to bed like I mean, I work nights now too, so like I go to bed, around like 3 or 4 in the morning. So literally sometimes I'd probably be going to sleep by the time you were getting up to go and do
Yeah.
cardio. But
Yeah.
so I would have the thing where in college, I mean, I'd have all my classes done by like 5 o'clock, and then I'd go work out until like 8 o'clock. But yeah, I remember that. I mean, I never did. I would run 3.5 miles, every day as that would be my warm up, and then go and lift after that. And yeah, just remembering how tiring that would get. But I had that lucky metabolism back when I was still, 18, 19, where I could go do that. And then I'd go have like 4 or 5 hamburgers in the cafeteria downstairs, not gain
Yeah.
an ounce, have a ton of chocolate milk for it. And yeah, so I definitely miss that. But yeah, I got a glimpse of what it's like to compete because I did, I never really like leaned down that much, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, it is very, very trying and hard. But how did you sort of adapt to that mentally too? Because for a lot of people, they don't understand the mental aspect is probably the hardest thing. I mean, a lot of people say, like the working out is the easy part. Just the mentally getting yourself to work out and pushing yourself to do that is the hardest. Did you find that was very, very difficult for you? And what tips or tricks did you do in order to sort of convince yourself to still keep up with it?
Okay, so I did find it kind of difficult. Like it's true, working out is the easy part. It's easy to go to the gym for 3 hours and lift weights. That's no issue at all. Anyone can do it. It's when you're at home, you're surrounded by your family and they have family dinners, birthdays, and you can't have that. It's, a type of control that you need to have. And that was the hard part, being surrounded by friends saying, hey, let's go out for drinks. Hey, let's go out for dinner. Like, I'll buy dessert. And, you can't because you're on a strict plan and you feel like, if you're off one meal, then you kind of ruined everything. And it is such a form of like strict control that you have to have. And I was on prep for 5 months straight. So I know it.
Jesus.
I know. So it was a lot of mental strength that I needed, but I did find it kind of hard at the beginning because I wasn't used to it. I
Mhm,
could kind of, like you, I could work out and then I could go home and kind of eat what I wanted and not
mhm,
worry about like gaining weight. But in this case, it was difficult because it was adjustment because I had to eat, this many ounces of chicken and 2 cups of broccoli 6 times a day. Everything was timed every 2 hours to make sure I ate and make sure I followed everything strictly. But the hardest part I think was the emotional aspect.
mhm,
I'm a very tough person, but I kind of caved a few times. I did have a few like mental breakdowns in between because it's hard, like, you're so limited and you are constricted and, especially if you feel like your body's not developing as fast as it should or, like, your coach kinda says, "You need to do this, you need to add more, you need to add more, you need to add more cardio." Like, my cardio went from 30, 35, 40, an hour, you know what I mean, to 90
mhm,
minutes. Like, it is mentally draining, it's emotionally draining because you kind of feel like you're not good enough and that you have to keep doing more to be good enough.
mhm.
And so that did become kind of hard, but then eventually, sorry, my voice cracked.
No problems.
But, eventually I kind of got used to it and I was like, you know what? Like it is getting easier. I do feel kind of drained in all these aspects, but it was starting to become me and I was starting to become more comfortable with this lifestyle.
Mhm. Oh, 100%. I mean, I had many times too where I was just even doing my runs, I was like, why am I doing this? And one of the things is that usually your results, they hit you in waves. I mean, it's going to be
Yeah,
at one point where a lot of people say, like, right as soon as they're about to give up, that's when they see the first changes, and that's what really hooks them on,
yeah,
where they're like, yeah, but I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, I always like to say, especially with our generation where people want it now and they want it yesterday. Where they
yeah,
just, I want to see it right now. I want to see the results. Where, like, I always like to make the comparison between like an alcoholic and someone who is obese. An alcoholic can go one day without drinking and they've already made progress. They're already in the zone. Whereas someone who's obese, they would have to work weeks upon weeks to start to see results,
yeah.
tangible results. Whereas someone who's, addicted to anything else, they can just stop that for one day and then they're already making results. So it's just one of those things too that a lot of people, they just want those results, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. But once you
Exactly.
see those first results, it can be very, very addictive, and it can be, it can make everything worthwhile. And I also like to ask, I mean, if you were to poll the general population, there would be a small singular percentage of people that would be willing to, go up on stage and pose in front of people in front of in basically a bikini. Was that something that you really had to also sort of convince yourself mentally that, to be able to do that? Or was it one of those things where we have a lot of guests on the show that are also like, you know what, I've worked my butt off, I'm just going to go off and show it off?
You know what? I kind of both sides.
Hmm.
I remember, like, I'm a very conservative person. I don't really like to show a lot of
Hmm.
skin as is. And I remember when I go to my posing seminars, they were private, but I'd have to be in like my suit already. And like I felt so uncomfortable being so exposed. But then again, when I went on stage for the first time, I was like, you know what? Like I felt like a whole different person. When I put the suit on, even though I was half naked wearing just a bikini, like I when I put that suit on, I felt so confident. I felt like a whole different being. I was like, I worked 5 months for this. I'm gonna
Hmm.
strut my ass on that stage and I'm gonna show how hard I worked. And so I kind of like agree with both sides. Like it wasn't comfortable at first, but I was like, you know what? I worked so hard 5 months straight for this body, so we're gonna show it off.
Absolutely, and like I always like to say, me and you are both from warm or colder climates, I should say. So we both sort of have, no offense, but we both kind of have palerish skin.
Yeah,
So when
I
it
do.
comes to putting that tan on, I always love to ask. I mean, I've never been tan myself. I mean, I get burned. I'm almost an albino where I just get burned. As soon as I'm out in the sun, even during the winter, I can get sunburned. If I go outside and I'm like ice fishing, or if I go skating, and I keep a little bit less layers on. But what was that experience like for you putting that tan on and just seeing everything pop and seeing like muscles that you never even knew that you had as a big thing that people always talk about? What was that experience like for you?
It was kind of cool to be honest because I'd never done like a spray tan
Hmm.
like that. Obviously, I've done like self tanner and
Hmm.
whatever, but nothing like that. And I had to do I think 9 layers of spray
Oh.
tan. And it's kind of weird because you're in like a room with like 10 other girls and like
Hmm.
you're completely naked and they're just
Yep.
like spraying you down. So that was a little uncomfortable, but when the tan was all dry, like it was kind of cool looking in the mirror. You just take a picture and like standing naturally
Hmm.
and you look jacked. Like it's amazing how just one layer of tan makes
Oh
your
yeah.
muscles pop and shine.
Oh yeah, that's one, and I never knew about the naked thing until I did my first podcast where we talked about that, and I was like, oh, I never knew that. That's interesting. But yeah, that's one of those things that a lot of people don't realize, that it's just a lot of stuff goes into that tanning process, and you have to become like a statue too. You can't sit on anything. You can't really
Yeah, your
move up
arms
against.
are just
Yeah,
open.
you basically just have to be a statue. Yeah, for the whole time. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
100%. And now probably one of my favorite questions to ask. I mean, I ask this to all my guests, whether they be bands, professors, competitors. What is that feeling like for you when you get to go up on stage and show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months to achieve? And you basically, like you've explained, you've gone through almost like a living hell when it comes to prep. And then when you're finally able to get done with that, and when you've reached the goal that you've worked your butt off for months upon months to achieve, what is that feeling like when you finally get to go off on stage up on stage and show off all of that hard work?
Honestly, it's such an achievement. Like people don't understand. Like, of course, they're gonna think, "Oh, prep is it's just hard work," but the achievement at the end of it, how proud you are of yourself, and like, especially your support system too. Like, I never realized how many people were supporting me when I competed. And as soon as you step on stage, like everyone's out there in the crowd. Your coach is there, your dad's there, your friends are there. Everyone's messaging you on Instagram, like saying how amazing you're doing, and it's an achievement because everyone is looking up to you. Everyone knows how hard you worked and what you put into it, that cardio, that nutrition aspect, the working out like for months on end. Everyone knows how much effort you put into it, and that makes it more satisfying is that, people look up to you. And so, you feel like a different person. You feel like you've accomplished so many goals, even though you're working your ass off and in so much pain.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. And now we get to one of the fun questions that we have on here. What is your go-to post-show meal?
oh my God, donuts.
What
So,
type of donut is your favorite?
okay, so well, actually, my show was held in Hamilton, and there's a
Oh,
donut shop called Monster Donuts.
that
Oh
sounds
my
great.
God, they were so bomb.
Yeah.
So my dad went out and got us half a dozen, and I think my favorite
Half
one
a
I
dozen?
had.
You're not doing it right with just half a dozen. You got to get a baker's
Oh,
dozen.
trust me, there was more. Trust me, there was way more that day, the day after, and days
Yeah.
after. But it was like a pumpkin pie donut with
Oh
like
my God.
cream cheese icing with like crumbs on top, like the pie crust. It was so heavenly, and I remember just biting into it. I was like, my life is complete. This is all I
I
need.
hate asking that question because it gets my mouth watery every single time. If I ever competed, I'd probably do like a Five Guys after that and just get two of the biggest burgers imaginable and just chow down on them. But yeah, bear claws are probably my
Yeah.
favorite type of donut. But yeah, I've never heard of that pumpkin pie, so I might have to go and I might have to see if they're still selling them. I might have to get one to ship to me or something like that because that sounds pumpkin pie
So
is my favorite type of pie, and especially we had Thanksgiving about 3 weeks ago, so
yeah.
that's the best. And now also Christmas time too. We also is a lot big time for pumpkin pie. So
Yeah.
I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely love that. But now, I mean, one of the more important questions that I love to ask that isn't talked about a lot on Instagram at all is that a lot of people when they come up to me and say like, "Oh, hey Ryan, I love your podcast. I love watching it. Those guests that you have on, those bodybuilders, they must be just jacked and shredded 365 days out of the year. They don't realize that look that you guys present on stage is not a sustainable look. You've basically manipulated your body through all the dieting and working out into a look that is not sustainable. Like you said, you had to lose basically 45 pounds and you were already like really muscular and in shape before that, and you had to lose 45 pounds of that just to get on the stage. I mean, was that a hard adjustment for you mentally, realizing like this is not a sustainable look that I can have? I mean, it's kind of 50-50 for the responses that I've got. Half the people say, like, I love being lean and I'm very sad to see it go. And then other half people are like, I hate being this skinny. Like I get even colder. I get more moody and irritated where it's like, I can't wait to put on the weight. But was that ever an adjustment for you, just realizing like, hey, after all of that, like 5 months of just working my tail off, I have to put on some weight now. Was that hard adjustment for you?
So yeah, especially it being my first show, like a lot of people told me about post-show
Mm-hmm.
letdown. And so essentially what that is like you put your body in a state of depletion for so long, especially someone like me, I have a hard time burning fat and dropping the pounds. So when I do, after my body being such a state of a depletion for so long, when I do get back into eating normally, I pack on pounds like that, which is kind of unfortunate. But it was hard to kind of see my body shift so fast. And it was hard letting that go. And like I remember going back into the gym and like I'd wear baggy clothes because I wasn't comfortable with how I looked. Like from going to seeing veins all over my body and every muscle in my
Mm-hmm.
body for like a couple of days after my show to everything just being covered.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, like also the diet took into play. Like I kind of wasn't watching what I was eating as much. And that was kind of hard because it messed with my head a lot. This post show letdown that, you cannot sustain a body like that. And I was looking at some of your videos and there are some female bodybuilders who, they've been competing for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
they know how to sustain that
Yep.
body type. They have, I don't want to like call them out, but like, they have drugs and stuff to kind of maintain their body shape. And
Yep.
they just have so much knowledge where they can sustain that body shape. Whereas me, I'm a natural athlete. I can't do stuff like that. I just have the knowledge of working out and my nutrition. So it was kind of weird, like that
Mm-hmm.
adjustment and that shift of body type. So yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I have those guests on, I want to say something, but I was like, nope, they're guests on my show. I'll be nice to them. But when they're talking about like, oh yeah, it's just easy for me, and I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, yeah, glug glug glug. Yep, okay, yeah,
yeah,
we understand. Yeah, we get that. But yeah, I mean, and there's some people too that I've had on too where they are just like naturally just genetic freaks. Where they've like, I've had people like after the show's over where they're like, you don't believe me that I'm natural, right? And I was like, I don't really care if you are or not. And then they showed me like photos when they're kids, and I was like, okay, yeah, you were natural because I mean, unless you were roiding up when you were like 8 years old, I believe that now that you're not just because genetically you're just huge. Like yeah, there was one girl that we had on. I'm not gonna name her, but yeah, she was just as a kid. I was like, okay, yeah. there's no way that you are doing anything. But yeah, I say that all the time, that a lot of people, and two, I mean, even if you are natural, over the years though, it does get easier just for your body to sort of increase
Exactly.
that. But yeah, it's one of those things too that a lot of people don't realize, because they see some of these people in the gym, they're like, oh, they don't look like a bodybuilder at all. It's like, well, yeah, because they're in off season. They just look like someone that lifts a lot of weights, and that they're not going to be like
right now. I don't look like I can be.
I mean, well, like me too. I always like to put on, like 10 to 15 pounds every winter, just so I can, survive a little bit better in Minnesota, at least. I mean, because I have a job. I'm at UPS, and I'm a supervisor, but still at night I have to do yard check every single night, and this is usually at around like midnight, where I got to go outside. I got to look through every single trailer. There's about 100 in the yard. I got to look through every single one of them out in the cold. So yeah, I got to be bundled. And yeah, if I were to be about 15 pounds lighter, I would be so freezing that I just be like, F this after like 5 cars, and I'd be like, I'm going back inside. They can fire me. I don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely gotten to that point. But now, I mean, 2 of my favorite questions to ask. The first one, when I started getting, bigger and stronger in the gym, the one negative thing that I realized is that a lot of people are going to ask you to move their furniture for them. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months before I get transferred to UPS. But whenever they come home with food, I mean, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and take all the food in for them. Have you found that that's been a similar experience with you, where just people take one look at you and then they just assume that you can do favors for them like that?
Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty funny that you actually said that, because, people, they're like, oh, well, she works out, and so she's strong. So like, if my grandparents see like furniture moved in their house, they're like, oh yeah, Simon's my dad.
Yeah.
Ashley and Simon, you guys can just go do it. You can lift it, no problem. So yeah, that did actually kind of happen a lot.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. And for me too, it's also a double-edged sword, because I'm 6'3", so everyone just takes one look at me and I could not even have any muscles, and they'd be like, yeah, that guy's tall, he can do it. So yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. But it got to a point where I did realize, they do recognize that I do work out. But I did tell them eventually, I was like, it's got to be after I've done my workout, because I'm not going to get tired from moving all your stuff where then I can't work out later in the day. So yep, I got that. And now, probably my favorite question that I'll ever ask, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there who's listening. When it comes to clothes for fit women, there are so many things that go into play, where I always like to say, if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses are not your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where jeans are just very, very hard to buy. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
I wear a lot of Lululemon.
Yep.
So like, they're casual wear, because
a great invention, by the way.
Yes. So their stuff stretches a lot. So like, I have a whole bunch of pants, because they're casual. You can wear them and they stretch, so they fit every type of body shape. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of what I go to.
Well, like I always say, it's a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there. I've had some people that have done fashion, and I always tell them, it's like, I have a multi-million-dollar idea. It's like, I've talked to over 100 male and female bodybuilders on the show. Just, they want new clothing, provide that for them, and they will pay you money for it. I mean, it's like, it's an easy way to make money, but no one has taken me up on it yet. So, I might have to start myself. I'm never into fashion, but I could really, really help out with the marketing aspect of it. That's what I say. But now, I mean, like I've mentioned a few times, we're both coming to us in cold climates. What are some ways and tips that you sort of trick your mind into during the winter? Because like up here in Minnesota, it can get to like negative. I think the coldest it ever got for me was negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which, I mean, in Celsius, that's got to be, like a lot more. But it can get very, very cold up where I'm. It's like the coldest part in the United States. So what are some tips and tricks that you use for yourself during the winter, when basically your body is just telling you, let's stay indoors and just watch Netflix all day, or let's just relax, and it doesn't want to go out and do stuff? What are some ways that you sort of trick your body into saying like, hey, we still need to get this workout in?
Yeah, so during my prep, it was still kind of hot outside, but towards the end of it, like late October, my show it was really cold in the morning. So when I'd have to get up at 4:30 in the morning or 4 in the morning, it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of, put on a sweater, put on your sweat belt, put on your vest, and get your ass to the gym. Just put on a sweater, you'll sweat a little bit more. So
I can say,
excuses.
Oh, absolutely. And I can say, there was one time I saw a guy wearing a sweat belt in the gym, and I almost wanted to go up to him and be like, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. I was like, you're a guy. Come on. No, don't wear that sweat belt. I mean, it's like, that's for girls. Come on, guy. But yeah, it was pretty funny. And then I always, the one thing that I really find funny are those people that wear those oxygen masks when they're running.
Yes.
To pretend that like they're running up a mountain. And the thing is, so when I went to college in Mankato in Minnesota, and it had very hills. It had like a wide variety of hills. It was basically one of the campuses, or one of the rec places, was like basically built on a hill. So I would always laugh at the people who, and the workout place was down the hill. So I'd always laugh at the people that were in the gym with that stuff on. We had like 2 guys that would always wear that. I wanted to go up to him one time and say like, buddy, there's a hill literally 0.2 of a mile outside of this facility that you could go up and run and still get the same thing from running on the tread. So yeah, it was very, very funny. But I mean, yeah, I just can't imagine getting up that early and doing that. One of the things that I love to talk about too, again, it's never talked about, is sleep. I mean, like I told you before we started this podcast, I had the #1 sleep specialist from the UK come on and talk. And just sleep can be so important. It is the most important thing when it comes to muscle recovery. But how has your sleep been affected? Because I can't imagine, getting up at 4:30, you're going to be getting all the amount of sleep that you'd want.
Yeah. So I was tired all the time,
Mhm.
of course. So I come home, I go to school, and then I come back, and any opportunity I had to go take a nap, I would for a couple hours at a time. Like every time my dad would come into my room, he'd be like, "You're sleeping again." And then even when the evening would come, I'd go to bed. Well, I'd come home from the gym at like 11 sometimes because my workouts were
Yeah.
still, yeah, because it's all about timing,
Mhm.
right? So I'd come home so late and, I just crash right away. Like your body's just so exhausted. So any opportunity, I'd be asleep.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand. Sleep is just one of those things that a lot of people just don't get. Is going to be just so important for you. I mean, it's like with a recovery, with everything else, it is so important. But now we go to the audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, where I'm going to ask Ashley here about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Okay. So I like a lot of house music and
Mhm.
remixes. So think of like a heavy drop. I think one of my go-to songs is Mako Beam. It sounds so stupid, but it's pretty good. And Finest Hour, but like the remix version, not the normal one.
All right. To be honest, I have no idea what those two are because I'm an old school. I mean, I'll have like classic '80s music on when I'm listening. I mean, the Rocky IV soundtrack, I've said this before, is like my go-to soundtrack just because it's so cheesy, but it's so funny. And then
Yeah.
like I also do a thing where I like heavy metal a little bit, where I'll have like my Metallica or my Iron Maiden. But I also have a problem where, let's say I'm doing lat pull downs at the gym, I wait for the beat to drop, so you might see me there just like this for like
No,
30
me
seconds.
too.
Yep. Fine. Okay. We finally
I'm
have
exactly the
found
same.
someone else that does the same thing, because I'll have people come up to me at the gym, because I get lucky where I have a home gym at my house, so like 75% of the time I work out from there. But when I go to a regular gym, all people come up to me and be like, "Dude, are you all right? Did you like pull your back or something?" I'm like, "Nope, just waiting for the beat to drop." So,
Exactly.
yep, 100%. I totally understand. But now, what is, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh my goodness, that's a really good question. Okay, her name is on Instagram, Lauren for She-Hulk.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, if you know who she is, she's so
She is
badass.
huge. Yeah, she's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's crazy fit.
And she's like
And
5'11" too.
yeah, and I think she lives in the area.
Oh, she's
Like I think
Canadian too?
yeah, I'm pretty
Huh.
sure she lives like I don't know if it's in Toronto or like Mississauga type of area or something like that. But her or oh, what's her name? Her name's Cam Lee on Instagram. She's covered in tattoos. She was in the army.
I might know who you're talking about,
She
yeah.
has like colorful hair, like one size purple, one size pink.
Yeah, I think
She's
I know who you're
so
talking about, yeah.
fit. Yeah, she just got her pro card
Yeah,
in her most recent show.
yeah.
So either one of them. Sorry, no guys.
No word. Okay, thank you, because I gotta say, 95% of the time we hear Dwayne the Rock Johnson is our #1 answer for that. So
No.
thank you for saying someone else, because like 95%, because you're gonna be like 100 health and fitness guests when this gets posted. Literally 90 to 95% of the answers have been, oh yeah, Dwayne the Rock Johnson. So it got to a point where I was gonna say, like, other than Dwayne the Rock Johnson, who would you
Yeah.
choose? But yeah, Lauren for Shield. I'm not gonna lie, I've messaged her, but she hasn't got back to me. So Lauren, if you see this, I want you on this podcast. So you
Or
gotta
Turkey.
definitely, yeah, you heard it from her. I'll tag her in this. I was like, "Lauren, yeah, definitely get back to me. We'd love to have you come on." Yeah, she's yeah, just taking one look at her, I was like, okay, oh my god, I need to go work out some more. I need to
Yeah.
definitely train a little
Amazing.
harder, 100%. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea. That's such a good question. I'm stumped. I'm
No
totally
worries, you can take as
stumped.
much time as you want.
Oh my god. Any celebrity that I could train. I'm trying to think of like someone who's not fit. But I don't know who it is. I don't know.
Well, I gotta say, like, our #1 pick is always like Kevin Hart or Ellen DeGeneres or people like that. But the problem with that is that, with comedians, you're not gonna get a good workout in. You're gonna get the best ab workout of all time, but you're not gonna get, you're not gonna.
I've got a good one.
Okay.
And it sounds super cheesy, but probably one of the Kardashians, like Chloe, for
Yes.
example. like she's super big into like working out, and like they all have like these weird intense diets. So I kind of like to see how they would respond to a workout like mine.
To
Like
like
I
an
have
actual
friends,
workout, not their stupid bullcrap work. That's my biggest pet
right?
peeve. Are these celebrities? My biggest pet peeve are these celebrities who like you'll see them post a video. They're like, oh my god, getting ready for my movie role, and they're curling like 2 pound dumbbells, and they're like,
Yeah,
oh
and
my
it's not
god,
just
so
like their
difficult.
waist trainer is
Yeah,
doing
they're like
everything,
they're
and
like,
there's
oh my god, so difficult, and I'm just like, okay, first of all, you're lying to everyone about how you get that, because let's be honest, these people basically then starve themselves, or they have these trainers that know every single trick in the book that get them to look super lean within 4 weeks of them doing these diets. Where then it's
yeah.
like, yeah, you're tricking everyone into thinking that it's just it's insane. But I also get concerned about guys like Jonah Hill who have lost and gained 150 pounds about 9 different times in their life. I was like, what is that doing to your body? Just gaining and losing that weight. Excuse me, gaining and losing that weight just constantly. I mean, that cannot be good. But yeah, one of the Kardashians, I mean, I would pay so much money to see them actually get put through a real workout and see how they responded, because yeah, I mean, it's like, let's be honest, Chloe, a lot of that is injections, a lot of that is other things that she does where it's just, yeah, it's none of
Yeah.
not it can't be from that much hard work. So yeah, that would be so fun to see you train Khloe Kardashian. Yeah, I would pay money to see that for
Yeah.
sure. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Peanut butter, hands down.
Believe it or not,
Yeah,
believe
I
it or not,
have.
well, I
Yeah,
was gonna
I
say,
have a bit of an obsession
I
when
was
it
gonna
comes
say,
to that.
believe it or not, our last guest was our first guest ever to say peanut butter in the fridge that they have. So we are our second guest now to say that. And for me, because like I always use like the Jiffy, where it's just you put it in you don't need to put it in the fridge, you just put it in the cupboard or whatever, and then it doesn't need to
Yeah.
go in. But yeah, some of these ones that you got to put in the fridge, I was like, oh, you got to put peanut butter in the
It,
fridge for some of these.
it,
So
yeah, the natural ones, the
yep,
natural peanut butters have to be put in the fridge. But I have an addiction, and it's kind of bad. Like I'll just sit there with the jar and a spoon and just eat it like that.
yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean I love my PB&Js, but it's got peanut butter was one of those things that I discovered late on that is very very high in fat, especially the ones that I buy. So when I started, I was like, cuz I started my job at UPS, and I walk around 20 miles during like my 8-hour shift, just because it's a constantly moving job, just supervising people. I'm never in one spot, and I'm always on my feet. So and I gained 5 pounds after about like 4 weeks, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on with this?" And then I realized, those 2 PB&Js that I was having for lunch every single day might not have done the best thing for me, and that might be one of the reasons why. So then I cut back on that. So yeah, that was definitely a shock for me. But now I got to ask too, being a Canadian, are you in Toronto? Do they have that weird phenomenon for us Americans where you have milk and bags?
Yeah, we do. Well, they're in cartons too, but they're mostly in bags. Like it's more convenient in a bag.
That's the one thing that when I had my first Canadian on, I was so excited to ask them, but they were in Vancouver, which doesn't have that, because I found out that it's basically the eastern part of Canada. The eastern part is the one that has the bag. But I was like,
Yeah,
that's just so weird to that. I mean, that just looks so foreign. But I mean, people love it, and apparently it's a lot more convenient. Especially it's recyclable, and it's not just like
yeah.
a carton where it's just plastic. But I was gonna ask, like, how strong is that plastic? Because I would be afraid that like just one prick, and then all of a sudden everything it would all just fall through.
Um, I think it's pretty strong,
Yeah.
especially because I know in like Africa and stuff, they use those milk bags to make blankets.
Oh, yep.
So they're pretty
I
hefty.
was gonna
They
say, yeah, they would have to be like super hefty. They couldn't just be like some of the regular plastic where as soon as like you put weight in, yeah,
like
that was my
grocery
yeah.
bags. Yeah, no, that would
That was the
snap.
one thing that's the one, because people all of a sudden, I mean, Canada and the US are so similar that like that's one of the few things too where you look at it and you're just like, wow, that is very very different. So yeah, everyone, she is in one of the provinces that has, those bags and those
Bag
milk
milk.
bags. Yeah, it's something that I've always wanted. I mean, I've never been up to Canada, but I've always wanted to go there. So if I went up there, that'd be one of those things that I would try and just see what that was like, 100%. But now, out of all the people that follow you on Instagram, what is one thing that they'd be surprised the most of if they met you in person?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I don't want to seem like one of those people who are like always on social
Hmm.
media, but I kind of like whatever I'm thinking, I kind of like
Hmm.
put it on like your Snap story or
Hmm.
whatever. So I'm kind of an open book, to be quite honest. Like my personality shows through what I post on Instagram, but I have a really good sense of humor. Like I always have like a comeback or like a clap back every time someone says something, and that's something you can't always find over social media. Like you wouldn't be able to pick up on it. So I think that's kind of the one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we hear of all the time is a lot of these people that post on, they're a lot shorter in real life than a lot of people realize. So then they'll be like, "Oh, you look like 6 feet tall in your post," and they meet people in person, they're like, "Oh, I'm 5 feet tall." Where as for me, I mean, it's the exact opposite. Where people be like, "Oh, you're 6'3", holy crap!" So
Yeah.
yeah, I get that. I get that all the time. But now, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
You know what? People are going to be super surprised, but I don't watch TV and I don't binge watch TV. The only thing
We're
is,
done here.
no, I know. And like people are like, what movies do you
Yeah.
watch? And I'm like, I don't really watch movies. But recently, because, it's Christmas time,
Mhm.
I have an obsession with Christmas movies.
Mhm.
So I've been on the Women's Network watching Hallmark every single day, all day long.
They have a women's network.
They do,
Oh, in
yeah, a
Canada?
Women's Network.
Well, at least they call it Women's Network because, like, Hallmark is basically a women's network. So,
Yeah,
let's be
all
honest.
Christmas
At,
movies.
at least in Canada, they're honest about it and they call it the Women's Network. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But for me, I'm one of those suckers for, like, those old school, like, clay animation movies, like Santa Claus is Coming to Town or, like, Frosty the Snowman,
Yeah,
like, all
yeah.
those old school ones. I could watch those. I mean, Christmas Eve, I'll be watching those all day long. Or the old Grinch, like the old 1960s one, the drawing one. That's one of my favorite ones, too. I mean, I could just watch those religiously. But now I'll skip the other TV show and movie questions because she's not a real person.
I'm
I don't think
sorry. I'm so
she's a
sorry.
robot who doesn't indulge in watching TV. Believe me, one of the guests that I'm actually going to be posting the podcast later today, right when I'm done with you, she got rid of cable so that she could pay for her gym membership. So yeah, we have a lot of people too. Believe it or not, I mean,
It
but a
right
lot of
there.
people too. The one TV show that they do watch is when they're doing their cardio. Then they just watch TV. That's the one thing that they're able
Oh,
to do.
yes. Okay. Because we're on that topic and you just mentioned
Mhm.
that, when I would do my morning cardio, the TV's in front of the treadmill would be on, and I always watch the Food Network.
That's just
So
torture
that's,
right there.
yeah, I know. And like one of my coaches would come up to be like, "You're doing cardio, but you're watching the Food Network. Like that is pure torture."
Hmm.
But I have an obsession with food. Like even my Instagram was full of like bakeries, donuts, every type of food. I'm obsessed.
I've always said that. I mean, if you really wanted to get some of these prisoners to talk or information, just have them go on a diet and then have them watch the Food Network while they're on the diet. I've actually said that. That's how you get results out of some of these people.
Exactly.
But now, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Oh my gosh. Okay. My favorite fashion trend. Maybe it's just for me, and I don't even know if it's a fashion trend, but I wear like very baggy Lululemon
Hmm.
pants with like a cool sneaker. That's
Ooh.
kind of like my go-to. Like I have like these nice Adidas shoes that I like to wear with like baggy Lululemon pants
Hmm. Yeah.
and like camp sweater.
Hey,
That's kind of my go-to.
that's rocking a style right there. I mean, that's definitely. And now, what is your least favorite fashion trend?
What do most people say their least favorite is?
Well, like I'll give you an example. The last podcast that I did last night, they said bell-bottom jeans. And the thing is,
Oh my,
they
yeah.
weren't even old. The person wasn't even old. They were like just as old as you. And I was like, okay, that was like 30 years before you were born, but all right. But yeah, that's one thing that we hear all the time. Or my go-to. So I'll just list mine then. So my favorite fashion trend of all time. I mean, especially now that we're getting close to the wintertime, is flannel. I mean, I love wearing flannel. It's so warm and comfy. And I mean, being up in Canada, you probably see that all the time too. Just guys in flannel. But yeah,
Yeah.
flannel, I absolutely love. My least favorite though, my dad used to rock one in the late 90s, fanny packs. Guys with fanny
Oh,
packs. Now
I
girls,
love those though.
no, here's
Those
the
are
thing.
so,
Here's the thing.
don't wear them,
Here's the
but they're
thing though.
cute.
Girls can pull off fanny packs. That's different. But guys rocking a fanny pack, it's like, come on, dude. It's ridiculous. And they have been making a slow comeback, which is one thing that I'm a little concerned about. Where that's why I like to mention that for every podcast, like fanny packs, guys, stay in your lane. Come on, you can't do that. That's just enough. So
Yeah.
I'll come back to you at the end, and we'll see if you have your answer. But so
Okay.
now, going on to our next question. So if you had the all-knowing power, what would be one thing that you would change about the sport of bodybuilding if you had the all-knowing power to make a change?
Honestly, the one thing that I would change is a lot of people, like especially natural athletes or coaches of natural athletes, they kind of look down on athletes that do take
Mm-hmm.
performance enhancing drugs. And honestly, I don't think it should be looked down upon as much as it is. Like people think, oh, like if you take drugs, you're cheating.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair to all the other competitors. But
Mm-hmm.
there are national divisions, there are open divisions, and I think our bodies can only achieve a certain physique, and with that extra help with the performance enhancing drugs, it's kind of pushing your body that next step. And
Mhm.
so I don't think it should be looked down upon as much as it is, or at least within my little gym community,
Oh
it's
yeah.
kind of looked down upon.
Well, and I always love to say that about that too. I mean, it's like I've never used drugs, never in my life, and I never plan on doing it. But for the people that do, it's like more power to you. I mean, as the one thing that I do preach though is that people should just be honest about. Like some of those Instagram people where they you can tell that they're clearly on something and they never admit it.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to tell people like, do my workout plan, and you could end up looking like this. Where it's like, okay, yeah, does that include a healthy dose of steroids in that too? So it's like, no, but it's just like the people that are honest about it, I have the most respect in the world for them. They're just honest because I've had one guest on that was like, yeah, absolutely, I do take steroids, and it's one thing that I'm very open about. So I'm just like, you know what, I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's one of those things too where I was just like, okay, if you weren't meant to take them, then they wouldn't be invented. They wouldn't have been invented, or they're not able to have been invented. So it's like it's one of those things where I do have a lot of respect for the natural people too, and I also have a lot of respect for the people that do take them because a lot of people don't realize that the people that do take them, you still got to put the work in.
Yeah.
It's not like you just take them, then all of a sudden you just grow like huge. It's like no, you
Yeah.
still got to go and
It does
work out.
happen. Yeah. Like
It's
they have a purpose and you have to utilize its
oh,
purpose. Like, you can't just sit there and, just put drugs in
yeah.
your body and expect it to change like that.
100%. And so like I said, I mean, if people were just more honest about it, I would be grateful. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And then also for those people that are like just all about, just I just want to be all natural. It's like, well, really, let's talk about what is natural, because when we talk about genetics is kind of a form of cheating as well. If you're born with superior genetics to someone, I've had friends that have never touched a weight in their life and they're more muscular than I will ever be if I were to work out, for 5 hours a day for the rest of my life. So it's like that's another thing too, where it was like, really, if you wanted everyone to go all natural, then what would you say about genetics? But then people have to take like genetic replacement drugs or something like that so that they would have to, not be as big and strong. So yeah, that's just another thing that I always think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now for our last question in the questionnaire, I know that this isn't very long of a period, but if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Be patient. I think it's super important because, like you said, everyone kind of expects things to happen like that. And, they want it now or they want it yesterday, like you said, which
Mhm.
I find is the case for most people. And I feel like, things don't happen overnight, no matter what it is. It takes time, it takes weeks. And in this particular case, it took months to achieve a certain physique and a
Mhm.
certain body type and mentality. So, yeah, just to be patient, things do take time.
100%. And again, you guys, I mean, we're done with the questionnaire part, and now, what's your current plans when it comes competing wise? I mean, I know you're in your off season right now, but do you have any dates of when you would want to compete next, or is it just one of those things where you're just in sort of you're just gonna say like, hey, let's just see how this works out?
Actually, yes, I do have a date set already. Because I won first place and first overall, I qualify for nationals
Hmm.
August 2nd and 3rd.
Ooh.
So I will be competing then. So my next nationals prep, it does start the second week of February. So I'll be prepping
Before or
for,
after Valentine's Day?
oh my gosh. I think I want to say it's after, but
I was gonna say if it's before, that's just torture. You gotta have that one day to just eat that Valentine's Day chocolate.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I'll be prepping probably the second week of February. So
Mhm.
I'll be on another 5-month prep.
Oof.
And
Yeah.
this is
I
kind of a lifestyle now, so
Oh
I
yeah,
have
and I wish you
a
nothing
lot
but the
of time.
best. To be completely honest, like a lot of people that we have on, their second prep is the hardest one because the first one everything's just so new and just weird. But the second one where it's like, okay, we got to get down to business now. So we do wish you, I mean, all the best of luck in that. But now, I mean, we are a week away from Christmas Eve, my favorite day of the year. I mean, most people say Christmas is their favorite day of the year, but Christmas Eve for me, just because the anticipation, the excitement, and getting
Yeah.
with family, Christmas Eve is by far my favorite day of the year. But what are your plans for Christmas, and more specifically, like how do you sort of balance the diet aspect of it, or is it now that you're in your off season where you just kind of let yourself indulge during the holidays?
So not really indulge. Like indulge sounds kind of like gluttonous,
Hmm.
but the type of person I am, I need some form of structure.
Hmm.
So throughout the week, I do like my clean eating, and then on like the weekends or whatever, like hey, like if I want to go for dinner, or hey, I want to treat myself to dessert or like ice cream or cookies or whatever, I'll have it without feeling bad. But
Hmm.
when the holidays comes around, my family is very big on food. My grandparents love
Hmm.
baking, love cooking, and so when we go to their house, I'll have what I want and I'll
Hmm.
be okay with it because I am in off season. Off season is the time to grow.
Hmm.
You just kind of let your body adjust before you put it under pressure
Hmm.
again.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And like I say, for me, indulging. I mean, I am a huge fan of root beer. I love root beer, so I get those bottles of root beer. I have 2 6-packs, and I drink 3 of them on Christmas Eve, 3 of them on Christmas Day, 3 of them on New Year's Eve, 3 of them on New Year's Day. So that's my indulging a little bit with the food wise too. So yeah, I cannot wait for that. And again, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Um, Unfortunately, no, other than my dad, but I don't know.
She doesn't like anyone, everybody.
No, of course, my coach,
No, yeah.
Tana, that's definitely someone I do want to shout out. Even though she put me under a lot of pressure, she really kicked my ass and made me achieve a goal that I've always wanted to do.
Calling you out, Hannah.
Tana.
Oh, Tana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my other coaches, Adam, too. Even though he wasn't my official coach, anytime I had an issue or I had a problem or I needed a question, he was always there. My best friend, Cassidy, at my gym, she's always been super supportive. And when I was down, she was always there. And of course, my dad. So those are the people I'd like to shout out.
Absolutely. And again, you guys go follow her on Instagram, go follow her on everything else. I'll leave all of her links down below. Again, we cannot appreciate Ashley enough for coming on the show. You were a great guest. And again, everyone, just go and follow her on Instagram and just check it out. And you'll just be inspired to get off the couch and put on those and stop eating those Twinkies. She's 21 for God's sake. That's just embarrassing me right now. So again, you guys, Ashley Leeds, we cannot thank you enough for being on the show. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.